Death shows how controlling you are. It's a very dark topic, I'll admit. However, it is very important to mention because this is a way to impact how you see yourself on other people and how that impacts you and how that impacts them in their day-to-day lives because of your actions. Now, to give you this example, right, one of my relatives was in a hospital bed, and he was debating on the fact that he's probably going to die very soon. And he was stating that he had a very, how do I say this? He had a very dark tone to life for good reason. And when he was explaining his logic to us, right? Two of my other relatives, I'm not going to say any names or anything for privacy, they were trying to battle with him to get him to change his mind. However, I sat back and I listened. And obviously I believe that my choice was better, because even in just regular life, when you show that you want to listen to somebody, that effect of bringing it out and just letting them go on until their point is fully explained and you know they have nothing else to say, that's when you gain a very deep understanding of that person, especially when it comes to something like this. So it just dawned upon me to think that, okay, if I were to listen to these people who are close to their death or just living or in day-to-day, whatever it may be, if I were to just listen to these people a little bit more than trying to enforce my ideas like a dictator on them, then I would probably actually have a better chance of having my ideas be understood in their entirety. And I watched this happen when these other relatives were having an argument with the one in the bed. And they were saying, well, we don't want you to die right now. You have, imagine how sad that'd be, the typical, line that you always hear. And then, obviously, the other relative responded with something along the lines of, kind of a more memento mori type, we're all going to die anyways kind of explanation. And to be fair, the relative thought it was their time. Makes sense. And, I mean, who wouldn't think it was their time if they're 70-ish? If they're 70-ish years old, they're debating on, there's an infection in their body, and the relative's wife died years ago, right? To put that into a more understandable perspective for you as the audience. So, anyways, back to what I was saying. As I was watching and listening to what he was saying, and I was able to listen to this argument and almost stand. It's a really interesting perspective, because you're in third person, and you can watch these first person people having a discussion back and forth, and yet you're still there. You're still prominent. It's just you're able to absorb in much more when your mindset is on listening. And so I sat there and I listened. I think the relatives that were arguing with each other, they spoke. I mean, we were there for probably an hour. And out of that hour, I think I said about 5 sentences, like, to my relative that was in bed, compared to the entire argument that was happening over here. But yet, I could tell in that room that my presence and my voice had a much bigger impact than the argument they had. Obviously, they're playing the basic role, which has its basic impact, which is needed for someone to come in with an advanced impact, in my opinion. But understanding that really helped me, like, in applying it, really helped me understand the grasp of my relative's perspective on life in their present moment, compared to trying to resist it in order to feel that, in order to feel the feeling that he's not going to go yet. And going back to the grim concept of death, I apologize, but from my personal experience, I've seen a lot more death than most people do, to be frank. But in this way, I began to understand that death is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. Because obviously there's the metaphorical concept of when someone dies, you don't actually lose them, blah blah blah. But that's not what I'm thinking about here. The reason why people die at their time is to show you something. Every single time I've seen someone pass, I've been shown something. There was something there. And when you listen and you respect the person that is in the dying state, you begin to it's not the right word I'm looking for here. It's a way of realizing what that lesson was or is. So another thing you'll notice when you listen deeply into the moment of this often fearful event that most people put a negative light onto is you'll feel the emotional connection. It's like this. It's like this. There's nothing else to it. When you sit there and you listen, and you go through, then you respond, the emotional, it's this. It's really, it's powerful. It's really hard to explain, but with someone, if you were able to be in my shoes, you would understand how I'm able to explain it. But it's a clarity of sorts. And this clarity that was passed on to me is a really powerful tool that I have to this day, which I want you to at least have a piece of too, if only today, help you understand the value of listening to people, the value of letting things go and looking at the lessons along the way to grow in that sense. Right. Sorry, I'm a bit thirsty. But it's a fascinating thing because although the darkness and the grim associated with death is only a physical thing, simply what it is. I'm not a person that looks at death in the grand scheme of things. I don't look at it like that. I just look at it as opportunity, which is a very weird thing, I admit. I'm not normal. Like, if anyone's met me, I think the one word they would never describe me as is normal. They wouldn't describe me as like crazy or anything. Like, a lot of them would actually describe me as smart. But, man, my sinuses are horrible. And it's just like, it's kind of hard to breathe out of my nose. So I apologize. But, it's, man, I keep missing it. It's this feeling, I'm this close to this feeling of enlightenment where I can explain exactly what I want to. I'm that close. So I'm going to keep trying until I get it. This video might be an hour long because of it, but that's fine. I want to get this point out. The strength. The strength in death? Huh, that is interesting. So, what I just thought of was how the strength in death is the energy you obtain from that person's life dissipating physically. And I've used that a lot in my life. Not in like a dark way. Just when somebody passes, you have to understand that energy, that emotion, harness that. Because that's from my experience. I've done this. Like my entire life I've done this. When you harness this energy, it's something different. It's something you don't, it doesn't go away, right? It's a permanent energy that you can unlock and have access to. And it's a permanent flame that doesn't go out because it's someone's life, you know? It's that. Ay. Do you hear that bird in the background? Like, yeah. But it's that ability to unlock this. See, and even the crow agrees with me. It's the ability to unlock this energy correlated with someone's death. That's the reason why I don't see it as a negative thing. Because obviously we already know the whole grand scheme, the mental thing, but people don't understand that death is the greatest opportunity to harness strength. Yes. I've done it 2, 3 times, 4 times, I think. And a lot of people think, like, I think another thing a lot of people would say, I have like this high chaotic amount of energy in a weird way. And that's because of this, 100%. So, I guess to really drive home my point for this part is that death is an energy that you should harness to emphasize what they wanted for you, which was to continue your life in a way where that you cause a positive impact upon other people just as you did to that person that did to you. Does that make sense? I hope so. So, my second point about death. God, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hate making this because it sounds really dark. Well, a lot more darker than it actually is. But I digress. So, another point that I want to make about death is that it has the ability to unite people like nothing else does. And it's because it's the finish of the movie, right? It's the little fin cat. Like I never knew what that meant. But if someone knows, comment it. But it's the little fin at the end of the the thing it literally says fin at the end of the movie. It's that part. And you're like, oh, that's it. But except for human life. That really, it wakes people up. It makes them begin to realize that, okay, my time here is limited. What do I do with it? So, in that way, it also provides a mental superpower to you, even if you don't have anybody in your life who died, right? So, or yeah, ... But, man, I'm sorry, I literally sometimes I can't breathe out of my nose. So, now being able to breathe, let's explain this. This is what it feels like. It's just like this. It's captivating energy, in a way, which I have talked about already. But, so, being able to use this as an internal source is a great way to beat your competition, because it's an unfair advantage, right? When the cat you're running away from, right? Like, pretend you're a mouse and you have the cheese over here and the cat over here. You're trying to get to the cheese, but you're also running away from the cat. That's going to make you run a lot faster than just getting for the cheese. So, if the cat you're running away from is death, that's a pretty big cat, if you ask me. And that cat, it ain't going away. So you keep running, right? You keep running. And that's where the journey really begins for a lot of people's lives. And this journey of life, I assume, is one where you emphasize in your daily life, through the habits and actions you do, that emotion which the person that in your life that died, or the person in your life that impacts you in that way, that's where you accept that emotion, feel yourself, expend it. Right? Since that source is an infinite source for you. You don't have to worry about that source going away. Right? Because once that person's dead, they're dead. They're not gonna become Frankenstein yet. But until that day comes, you can take the energy of that death and use it, always. It's always there. And it's always yours. Because it's your energy. That life force has become your life force. And you can use that as a way to push it out. And then you can push it out as much as you want and then go and grab it again. That's really cool. At least I think. I think it's really cool. So, where was I going to go with this? Let's see. I want to show you that death shouldn't be looked at as a negative. It should be looked at as a new way for opportunities in yourself, in other people, and the lessons that you learn from it, right? The lesson, the one thing that, even the best lessons that you learn from people is before they die. Because they always leave with, the one thing that I would tell people is X. write that shit down. That's the thing. That's what I did actually with the relative that was in the bed. Since, at first they were not going to go do this surgery, which would leave the infection to spread through the body, whatnot, and kaput, they'd be dead. So I wrote it down. It was like, it's never really their last words. It's never their last words. It's usually the words just before. So I wrote it down. Since that is the thing that they wanted to leave, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to put my life energy behind that idea, because that idea is what they wanted to leave this world saying. In their last moments, that's what they gave you. It's almost disgraceful to not take it, right? Which, obviously, you have to be consciously aware of this in order to take it, which you now are if you're watching this part of the video. So good job. And I don't know. It's just, when you gain this new perspective, it's actually really exciting to get these insights and get this new energy to expend and use, which I guess now hearing this sounds really bad, but really it isn't. It's not like it doesn't, it sounds almost abusive, at least not what I'm thinking of in my brain, but obviously they're dead, right? Like, in a practical sense, they're dead. You're not they're not getting abused, okay? They're having a great time, you're having a great time. It's okay. And I guess for personal anecdote, I just thought of one thing that I want one of those recordings, as I'm getting buried. How some people have those recordings? I think that'd be fucking hilarious. Just have one of those little tape recorders and just be like, no, I'm getting buried alive. That's not just I don't know. I want to make people laugh at my funeral. I think that's another thing about death that's really cool, is that you get this special opportunity. Like I said, the uniting with people from earlier. You also get the opportunity to shift their emotions in any way, shape, or form, since they're all in this unison group of us. We are suffering, right? It's really not suffering. If you watch this entire video, you should get that premise. So, yeah. I think that about sums it up. So, I'll recap. Death is a form of energy that you can harness, and it gives you, death is a form of energy. You're able to harness it and use it, and it never goes away. It'll always be with you. The lessons you achieve from someone just before death are the ones that you keep the most. They're the ones that throughout their entire lives, this is what they've accumulated. That's what you should use as your tool, or even a weapon. And number 3 is that you should create these things in a way where you give value to other people in a much more powerful way, or at least equally powerful as they did to you, with your newfound understanding of this emotion that comes with death, and not in a negative light, right? Yeah, that's it. See ya.